Welcome back into another edition of From the Balcony. I'm your host, Riverter, with my co-host, Nietzsche.
Hey.
Today, we've got a couple of different, another couple more movies. This time, not by like forethought or anything, but just pure coincidence. My movie that I selected and the movie that Nietzsche selected both have a mutual actor. But they
Very
are
different role.
but they're so like 180 degrees out of phase from the type of movies that they are. But so the theme, I guess, today will be talking about the actor Robert Downey Jr. So with that in place, I'll go with do you want to introduce you do yours first? You want me to do mine first?
I think Tropic Thunder is a great movie to start off with, for sure.
Okay. All right. So the movie I selected was Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder is a 2008 satirical action comedy that was wrote by Ben Stiller, was directed by Ben Stiller, and starred Ben Stiller with a host of other actors such as Jack Black, Robert Downey Jr., Jay Baruchel, I think I probably didn't say his name right, Brandon T. Jackson. Those were the main characters, and the supporting actors or characters were played by Nick Nolte, Danny McBride, Matthew McConaughey. All right. Bill Hader, and of course, Tom Cruise. So that's kind of the preliminary introduction to the movie. Is there anything that right off the bat, Nietzsche, that you'd like that really stuck out with you on this movie?
I think the premise is really good, right? I think taking actors into like an active war setting, it kind of like lends itself to a lot in a comedy, in terms of like setups, what you could have characters doing. Overall, I think the premise of it is great.
The whole thing of the movie was a satirical look at not only Hollywood as a whole, but the actors and the quote producers or studio moguls, right? And one of the things that of course, watch the movie and then of course doing some research on whatever, Tom Cruise agreed to be in the movie only if he got to portray the character that was, because he asked you, well, so you're making fun of this type of actor and this type of actor and all these different things, that is Hollywood, but are you actually making fun of the, like the producer, right? And Ben was like, no. He goes, okay, I'll do it, but I want that character, and so, of course, he wears a bodysuit that makes his not only like his body itself to be larger, right, but it was overly shall we say hairy. His hands were like huge.
His head is huge. His head is ginormous. It looks really odd. Like it looks like he's trying to be like an alien or something. I mean, I don't know. In my mind's probably making it bigger than it actually is in the movie because it looked so abnormally large to me.
Well, that was the thing is they wanted it to be like overly accentuated, like very hyperbolic, right? And there was some, let's see here, in my notes, let me find the notes. Okay, so the character that Tom Cruise, since we're talking about Tom Cruise right now, which was really a very minor role, but Tom Cruise did an excellent job playing the stereotypical.
He has the best line, like the best rants in the movie. That gives way to that parody kind of aspect or whatever.
Yes. So some commentators and Hollywood insiders believe that the character that Tom Cruise plays, Les Grossman, was loosely based upon like a blending of two of the better known producers in Hollywood. One was Scott Rudin, famous for his volcanic temper and poor treatment of others, and the other one was Harvey Weinstein. So again, the whole thing of this movie is it's a comedy, right? It was making fun of the typical action based movies and the characters and the actors that that do them. But another thing that this movie came under a lot of scrutiny, a lot of controversy, and it wasn't what most people would think that it was, right? Because Robert Downey Jr. was playing a character by the name of Kirk Lazarus, who was an Australian in the movie, who was then in turn playing another character by the name of Staff Sergeant Lincoln Osiris. And Staff Sergeant Lincoln Osiris was a black man. And in the movie, Robert Downey Jr.'s character goes to a beauty, I don't know, like shop or what you'd call it, kind of like a
plastic surgeon
type thing, where they get his skin gets injected with this stuff that makes him darker, and of course, it would come across as blackface, right? But that's not where the controversy was, right? Because Ben Stiller, before the movie was ever released, he actually took it before the NAACP, right, and let them watch it, and they were fine with it. No, they thought it was very well done and very tasteful and done within the right context of what they were trying to do, and so they had no problems with it.
Well, they actively. Sorry to interrupt, but like they actively have another black cast member, right? Who's another character who's interacting with Robert Downey Jr. the entire time and playing it like Robert Downey Jr. is a fool for doing this, right? It's never played like, oh yeah, it's played for comedic value. The joke is that someone would do that is ridiculous, right? So of course it shouldn't. There's no controversy when you have those two things: the fact that it's a joke in and of itself, that it's ridiculous, and you have another black character who is actively saying like you're a fool, right?
One of the scenes that come to mind that highlights what you just said so well is Ben Stiller makes this goes on some diatribe, whatever he says, you people, right? And so Robert Downey Jr.'s character goes, "What do you mean, you people?" Right? And then right behind him is Brandon Jackson playing, his character's name is Al Pacino, right? He goes, which is the other black actor, or the black actor. He goes, "What do you mean, you people?" Right? So it's like, the movie is just hilarious, right? But and how they do this, but the
comedy is, I don't believe you people.
Huh? What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
Huh?
The reason why the movie was actually boycotted, right? And it wasn't because of Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of a black character by a white person, right? It was because of the way that Ben Stiller, there was a character that he played in another movie prior to this that keeps being referenced, Simple Jack. Right? And people lost their minds because of the way of people who have disabilities were portrayed. They were boycotting the movie, right? They people got upset about this, right?
Which is another joke. Like it's the same joke that's in my mind. It's the same joke that's being made with Robert Downey Jr. and him being quote unquote black. right? Is like
yeah,
how Ben Stiller, and that's where there's
yeah,
the whole conversation. That's
yeah.
also a joke.
There's another famous scene where Ben Stiller and Robert Downey Jr. are having a conversation, right? And Robert Downey Jr. is sort of, he's going giving examples like of different people that are actors who were not disabled in any way, playing people with disabilities. He talks about how, he goes, Tom Hanks playing Forrest Gump. He's, he goes, autistic, yes, retarded, possibly. He goes, braces on his legs, but he said, he charmed Nixon and he won a ping pong championship. And he goes, a goddamn war hero. He goes, have you ever seen a retarded person be a war hero? He goes, no. He goes, you never go full retard.
Yeah, Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump. Slow, yes, retarded, maybe, braces on his legs, but he charmed the pants off Nixon and he won a ping pong competition. That ain't retarded. He was a goddamn war hero. Right. You know any retarded war heroes? You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
And then he even refers to another movie done by Sean Penn, where he plays a disabled person and how it affected. There's always how it affected his career afterwards, right? So it's just there's a lot of tongue in cheek, like you said. It seemed like the African American or Black community took it in stride. Is like, yeah, this is funny, whatever. But the people with disabilities didn't take it as much.
Well, and I would hazard to guess that it's not really the
Yeah.
people with disabilities. It's the people who speak for and on behalf of the people with disabilities, right? That get all offended.
The
right?
champions, right? The champions, yeah.
Which is always the case with any controversy. Sure. And well, I can end on like that note that like most of the time when it comes to big exaggerated controversies, it's not the people that would actually be affected by it that are the loudest voices in the room. It's the people who are trying to speak on behalf of all these other people that are loudest.
So another thing that that they did to promote this movie that also caused problems was the production company or whatever, created 3 different websites. One of them was called Simple Jack for the fake film. Another one was called Make Pretty Skin Clinic, which was the quote fictitious clinic that helped Robert Downey Jr. get the pigment to play the black man. And then they had another one that was for the energy drink that the character was Booty Sweat, right? But the Simple Jack website caught so much flack they had to actually take the website down because, like I said, there was such an uproar or turmoil over the quote portrayal of disabled people. But nonetheless, even all the controversies, whatever, the film opened at the top of the American box office and retained #1 position for 3 consecutive weeks. They ultimately grossed more than $195 million worldwide before its release in home media. Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for an Academy Award, BAFTA Award, and a Screen Actors Guild Award. Both he and Tom Cruise received nominations for the Golden Globe Award. So, for a movie that is a satirical comedy, to get those type of accolades with that much controversy, I think was kind of cool. This is a movie that if you're one of the few people out there maybe that haven't seen this movie, 100%, the first opportunity chance you get, you need to watch. If you, however, are what's the word before easily offended, maybe not, because you could get your senses offended a little bit. But if you just like irreverent humor and comedy, I think this is a movie for you. I would highly recommend it. I think it's 2 thumbs up for me on that aspect. I didn't want to go as deep as we did it previously. I wanted to just kind of give you a very, and I felt like the last time I gave too much of the storyline, and I felt like I kind of took away maybe a person's desire to go watch it. But this movie is just full of antics, and they get into one situation after another. There are no big, I don't think necessarily plot twists or surprise endings or anything of that nature. But it's just a feel good, funny comedy to me. So that's my thoughts on it. Nietzsche.
I mean, I think there's just naturally more to say about the movies we talked about last time, especially when it comes to a movie like Tropic Thunder, where, the point of it is to experience the jokes, right? And you don't want to give, like, when it comes to that part, right? You don't want to give away that for somebody, whereas, like, the other movies we talked about, there's more to analyze, right? But, like, with this movie, I think, like, I didn't have near as many notes. What I do have, is I liked the music choices a lot of the time. I thought those brought a lot to the movie in terms of, like, we know these songs and the way they use them was good for what we know them for. I don't know if there's any songs that particularly, like, stick out for you. I didn't write down specific ones.
What I'll say is this is, if you are a person who have watched some of the older movies that are based in and around, like, the Vietnam War, which is kind of what this one is loosely based upon. They use a lot of songs and stuff from that era, which would have been in the 60s to early 70s songs rather. They actually reenact some of the more famous scenes and stuff from some of those movies. Like I say, if you are a connoisseur or watcher of those type of movies, you'll see things and you're like, okay, yeah, this is from that, and so on and so forth. It's from, like, things from, like, The Deer Hunter, Platoon, things like that. Those type of movies. They, like I say, they reenact and kind of, so yeah, the soundtrack was definitely well done.
The other parts I have here, the little kid actor in this movie is definitely a highlight for me.
Can I
go ahead?
Which little kid are you talking about? The one that's, like, running the camp, or the one that Ben Stiller adopts as his son?
No, the one that's leading the camp. The one that's leading the camp.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because obviously he's not speaking a whole lot of English, but, like, he manages to come across as this, like, I don't know, highlight character for me. Is really fun, and it's not just because he's a kid. Like, the way he's acting is really funny, especially against Ben Stiller. I think that just makes it extra funny. Their little exchanges are great. And then just the cast in general. I think obviously these are all very experienced comedic actors, and not necessarily like Tom Cruise, in the sense is not like against Jack Black in terms of comedy. Obviously, we think more of Jack Black as a comedy actor rather than Tom Cruise, but I think that almost makes it more of a highlight to see Tom Cruise in that way.
Especially the ending of the movie with what Tom Cruise does at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
The little dance routine stuff he does is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So
the last note is not really a note about the movie. It's more an observation about Matthew McConaughey. Well, actually 2 observations, because we'll give you guys a little story about when we watched this movie. So the first one is not the story, it's just an observation. And that is that Matthew McConaughey looks to me like he has 2 brain cells. Just two bouncing around. I made a note while watching. That just says Matthew McConaughey looks like he has 2 brain cells. That's all it says.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially because his mouth is always open and his eyes looking in like wonderment, like around at the kind of like Owen Wilson does that too.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But also, okay, so this is the story, right? So I don't know what happened. But back in the day, me and my mom I remember her telling me Matthew McConaughey smells, right? And I asked her like, well, why does Matthew McConaughey smell? And she told me that he does not use deodorant. And I shared this observation with the group while we were watching this movie. And they did look it up. And apparently this is something that he says. Apparently he showers a lot, right?
Yeah.
But what my mom also told me is that female cast do not like working with him because he doesn't use deodorant. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of time to shower when you're filming actively.
Sure.
So...
Yeah, he said, because I went out and looked it up, and he does not, because he prefers his natural pheromones, and he went on to say he showers up to like 5 times a day, which I kind of find that hard to believe, because I mean, a good shower, I mean, even if it's a quick one, is going to take what, 10 minutes or so, maybe? I guess. I mean,
well, I mean, even if you just to do like a quick, you don't even have to really use a lot of soap, right? Just to rinse your your smellier areas, your pits, like wherever you're sweating, right? Like if you don't need to fully shower to smell good,
like
right?
You don't wash your hair, so you have to do all the because I'm sure he probably puts product in his hair and all that other stuff.
Well, you should wash that part. Your hair might smell.
But if you're just washing your pits and your crotch and butt and things like that, I still would say it would take you, and then you got to dry off and then get dressed. So
but by the time by the time you're ready to like get it, like leave somewhere and go back to whatever, and you're fully 10 minutes,
yeah. So I mean. I don't know. I mean, but here's the thing, too, right? I like Robert Downey, or I like Matthew McConaughey, and I like the roles and stuff that he plays. And I guess as long as they don't ever invent smell-o-vision, it ain't gonna matter to me. All right. So is that fair?
Make this its own segment. With its own timestamp in the video of just discussing Matthew McConaughey's hygiene.
Sure, we can do that 100%. So, so anyway, do you have other notes that you want to?
That's my final note.
Okay, so thumb up or thumb down from you?
I would say overall thumbs up. I would say I like to say why. And specifically like for like what audience I would recommend it for. If you haven't seen it at all and you are a fan of comedies that are like satirical comedies, I would absolutely recommend it. And in general, if you're trying to get like, Toxic's on this whole movie journey now. And because he hasn't seen movies ever, if you ask Toxic if he's seen any movie, his answer will be no, but he is building that up. Right? He's working on it. He's got a couple of movies under his belt. And one of the areas is like classic comedies. And Tropic Thunder is a classic comedy movie in 100%. Terms of pop, in the pop culture. Right? Yes. So yeah, thumbs up.
It's one of those movies that I have, we discussed it earlier, was never go full retard. That is a line that is, I see like memes and stuff pop up constantly, like especially in the ecosphere, whatever that we kind of exist in, right? I see people make that kind of, like if someone says something that's really brain dead or whatever, like people come in with the meme, never go full retard or whatever. So this movie was, like I said, this movie came out in when was it, 2008, right?
Yeah.
So, we're looking at this movie is almost 20 years old. It's 3 years shy of being 20 years old. So it's, it's got some lasting chops there. So, Anyway, it's not a movie that I will watch like on a regular basis, but I still will come back to it and watch it when I'm just needing a really good belly laugh.
It's a good party movie.
Yeah.
Too. Like I would say, like if you are the type of person that likes to have your friends over and have something on in the background that you're not really watching, but it's just on there for when the conversation lulls and you guys need something to whatever, that whole fucking scenario, right?
Yeah.
Great movie to put on in the background for sure of a party or having friends over, whatever.
100%. All right. So moving along, let's talk about Charlie.
We're about to get a hard switch up here because I got some gripes with Peepaw because Peepaw went like I went so light on that movie that Peepaw picked because me and Toxic were sitting there, a little insight, and at the end of it, we were both like, "That was all right. This wasn't like great." And then, but I was gonna be nice, and I was nice. I was just so nice in my review.
You don't need
there.
To be nice, though.
I was so nice.
Be real. Be authentic.
And Peepaw offended me with how he felt about my movie.
Okay, first of all, we're talking about the movie Charlie Beckett.
Bartlett.
Whatever. Sorry, I can't even read my own writing. Charlie Bartlett. I'd never heard of this movie before, ever. So first of all, thank you for bringing one to my attention. That I did not hate this movie. I liked this movie. It was an okay movie, just kind of like Tropic Thunder is an okay movie. It's not, it's not up there in the top, shelf when I'm looking at movies to watch. But to me, it just okay. And this is where.
Should I give the synopsis first?
Go ahead. Yeah, give the synopsis and then
okay.
we'll kind of get into this.
It's going to be very short because I'm not a good synopsis giver. I personally like Peepaw's synopses. Charlie Bartlett, it came out in 2007. It is described by Wikipedia as an American coming-of-age comedy drama film directed by John Pohl. Never heard of John Pohl before. Which focuses on Charlie Bartlett. Charlie Bartlett is a 17-year-old. We learn quite a bit about him in the beginning of the movie, so I'm going to go ahead and say that right there. We don't know what's going on with his dad. He comes from a very wealthy family, and he's been kicked out of every private school in his area, right? He lives with his mom, who seems to be right away kind of aloof, but very sweet, kind, loving woman. But something's wrong, where she's not able to care for herself, and Charlie takes care of her. And the movie focuses on him and his first experience with regular mainstream public school. And Robert Downey Jr. plays the principal of this school. And there's kind of like a whole host of other characters that are great that we can get into later. But that's kind of the basic premise of the movie. So, Peepaw, let's go into your thoughts.
Okay. So that's a great introduction, by the way. I thought you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
The character Charlie, when we're first introduced to him, like you said, he is being expelled from yet another private school. And so most movies, teen movies, what I call a teen movie, which this is, when you have a character that is like from wealth and money, same damn thing, dumbass. That comes from wealth and
sorry,
attends like these type of elite private schools. They tend to be arrogant, cocky. Just
he's not though.
But he's not, and that was a fresh.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say he was. Sorry, I jumped the gun. I got protective of my. I love his character.
So and when we get this, we see right off the bat, we're introduced that he's not that way because his first day of getting on to go to this public school by writing public transportation, the school bus. He sits down beside a big gentle giant that is mentally challenged, and he introduces himself and starts having a pleasant conversation with him, right? Like and just, doesn't mistreat the guy or anything like that. He's just a decent human being.
Yeah.
So Charlie's character is, I would say, like he's struggling, right? Like a lot of these teen movies are. It's all about acceptance, and it's and fighting for acceptance to be liked. And I understand, because you said you were going to have issues with me, and I understand where and I understand it is because here's why.
Pause.
Yeah.
I have no issues with you. I mean, I have issues with your opinions.
My opinion or take. Yes, I understand. And that's okay. Yes, I stand corrected. So, we all have movies, right, from that were very impactful to us when whatever younger stages of our lives, right? Especially like in our teens or preteens, there'll be a movie, whatever. Mine, for example, is Breakfast Club. It is a movie that is very dear to me, and if people start talking besmirchingly against it, I get very defensive, right? Because
and that is not how I feel about this. That's how I feel about Empire Records, which we'll watch one day. That is my. But this movie, I just think is good.
Okay, so the movie to me was. It was a fine movie, but it was just a.
What was it lacking for you?
It was a typical teen movie. There was not lacking of anything. It was just very predictable. The only thing I will give you that was not predictable.
Robert Downey Jr. standing on his little deck with a revolving gun and that speech.
Sure. Yes, 100%.
Hello?
Oh, this better be good, Charles.
I came to invite you to the play.
Well, thank you for that, but I am just a little tied up right now.
What are you doing?
Venting. Just venting a little bit.
Is that your new word of the day?
Sure shit is.
Here's the thing. The only thing I'll give this movie credit for that was not stereotypical or predictable was the fact that the Charlie character was not some snobbish, arrogant, rich boy, douche that typically. I'll give you that, and I think that's what sets the tone for the entire movie.
I'll give you the thing with his dad, right? I think his dad right away. I don't think even we were talking about before we got into about spoilers with this movie.
Sure.
I think for me there's spoilers in terms of opportunities where they could have made something a little less predictable, like with Charlie's dad. Okay, we didn't know if he was dead or what happened to him. I think they could have made him not in prison for tax evasion. I think that was the most predictable place they could have taken that, especially with the crime of tax evasion. But I think it would have been cooler if they did something else with that. I think with Kip Cromwell, right? The character attempts suicide. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been cooler for them to take that a little deeper. But you're right. It is supposed to be, like Wikipedia describes, a coming of age comedy drama where of course the point of it is not to have Kip Cromwell have some crazy where he did follow through on his suicide and he did die, and Charlie has to grapple with that. Or same with his dad, maybe like taking his dad to be like he ran away somewhere for some crazy crime. But that's not the point of this movie. The point of this movie is supposed to be a coming of age comedy drama. And I think for me, what stands out of it among a lot of other of those, especially what I grew up with, was like the Disney Channel. Okay. Yeah. And the Disney Channel's coming of age comedy dramas looked like every TV show, like TV show like iCarly and wherever, where it's just like those type of plots, but in a movie, right? And so for me to see someone grappling with the type of things that he was, the way that he was, which was also more familiar to me. I grew up with a lot more Charlie Bartlett's, and his girlfriend, Kat Dennings, who plays her. She was just like me, right? These people were more normal to what I was experiencing.
Sure.
Even the bully character of him kind of, which is supposed to be a stereotype, right?
Mhm.
He kind of has this more like normal fucking dude air of him, where yes, he takes the train tracks home and he beats people up, but the way he interacts with Charlie, he's not like he's just a friend to him, right? And it's very normal. Like they have space between them, but if you look at their interactions, it's a lot more like interactions that I would have experienced. His mom, everything is more normal. It's not with this kitschy glow and squeaky clean. The Kat Dennings smokes. Okay, no teenager smoked in the teen movie, which is the difference between you and me, right? In our generational gap, like teens just didn't smoke in the shit that we watched. I did, you know.
Well, I don't. I'm going to throw out a couple of other movies that I think, and I don't know if you've ever seen these movies, but these are a couple of other coming of age teen movies that cover and deal with these type of topics. The first one that is Pump Up the Volume, starring Christian Slater, where it does deal with again teen suicide, right? And in this one though, the teen is successful, and the person that causes it, Christian Slater, his character has to live with that and has to deal with that. The other one, oh God, it slipped my mind. Anyway, I think this is kind of because I have seen so many movies, and this was, like I say, when I say this was another quote, like typical type coming of age teen movies, I watched all the ones from like in the 80s and then, all through the 80s and stuff. And I don't know how many of those you've seen, but this was a typical cookie cutter type thing. Like I say, the only twist that they put in this, and I'm glad that they did, and I think this is what makes this one a little bit more unique, is that the character Charlie is not, like I say, even though he's rich, he's not arrogant, and he's not a douche. He's just a kid that has, I think, a big heart, and he just wants to be accepted, and he doesn't know how to be accepted for who he is, and so he thinks he has to be these characters that he creates, or these things that he creates to get people to like him. And in the end, he finds that just being authentic, just being himself, is what it is. You asked the whole scene where Robert Downey Jr., who is dealing with the fact that he's a divorcee raising a teenage daughter, and the fact that his wife cheated on him, and that's why he's in a job that he doesn't want to have to do. He doesn't like being principal. It was kind of more or less thrusted upon him.
Well, his wife also cheated on him and left.
Yes. Yeah. And so,
and we don't know much else about him. But to be at that level of mentally distressed, you have to have some kind of
exactly.
history.
And so his escapism is crawling into a bottle, getting intoxicated, and driving his little remote control boat. That was his outlet. And so when it all comes crashing down, when as a father, as a parent, he sees this kid that he believes is a bad kid, which Charlie is not a bad kid. He's a kid that's doing some bad things, trying to be accepted, right? Because he thinks that's what is demanded of him, because he's seeking this drug that's called popularity, that all teenagers want. They want to be popular. And he's losing control of his daughter, and he's losing control of his of his school because he's the principal, and this kid is coming in and just, shaking up the apple cart, and everything's going everywhere. And so he reaches, he gets to the bottom of the end of his thing, and he's out there, and he's venting, and there was a scene at the end of the movie where Charlie and Robert Downey have this moment where they have this kind of heart-to-heart talk or whatever, and then they wind up going to watch the play, whatever, the musical that's being put on, and Robert reaches around and kind of touches.
That was a touching moment for me because of Charlie. Because their parents, to me, it's deeper than that. If you look at the opening, sorry, I'm gonna let you finish your thing.
So yes, so here's the deal, right? Another thing that Charlie has had to deal with is he's grown up and he's going through his teenage years, whereas a boy, that's one of the most times that you really need a father figure there to really kind of guide and help you.
But anyone though, because that's the contrast between. That's why they placed Charlie's character and God, what's her fucking name in the movie? Susan. Charlie and Susan together, because they both have and they have that discussion where she says it really sucks when you have one parent dip out and the other lose their mind, which is what happened to both of them.
Both of them. Yes. It's a mirror image, right?
Yes.
Charlie has his mom. She has her dad, but they both checked out, right?
Yeah.
She's the mother is through through pharmaceuticals, and Robert Downey Jr. is through alcohol, but they're both checked out. Irrespective,
and they both lost because they both lost their loves, right? She lost her love to the prison, and he lost his love to cheating,
to adultery. But when he reaches and puts his arm around him, I think that gave him something he needed, right? Which was acceptance by somebody he actually admired and looked up to, and he does. He looks up and admires, the principal.
I think it was also representative of the trust, right? Because I think Robert Downey the whole time looks at Charlie and sees a little bit that this kid is good, right? Because Charlie even says, right, your dad cut me a lot of breaks, right? Because they see, it's not that they have this, Charlie never has something out for Robert Downey ever. He never at one ever point ever looks at him and says like, fuck your dad, right? In fact, to Susan, I keep wanting to call her something else. To Susan, right? He says he encourages her to give her dad some grace, right? He never is like, pushing it on her, but like, hey, your dad's going through a lot, right? So for me, I think there was always some element of them wanting and seeing each other, but there has to be that boundary of what because Charlie's trying to be an adult, right? That's what's really going on here. Is his dad said to him, you need to take care of your mom, right? Because she was losing her mind, right? And so he's sort of being put in this position of being an adult, right? But he's not, right? He's a kid. And so I think in that moment, it was also an expression of trust. Like him finally taking the mask off and seeing that this kid, out of all of the people that his daughter could be with, he's probably, the best one.
Yeah.
And he can trust him. There's so much of him just finally realizing that the reason his daughter is up there singing again, able to withstand all of his shit, is because that Charlie's just a good kid. Whether he's a good fucking long-term boyfriend or whatever the fuck, he's just a good person in her life.
There's a scene where Charlie's coming to pick up Susan, right?
Yeah.
And he comes out and he's got a pharmaceutical bag, right? And if you guys want to know the significance of that, you really got to watch the movie. So I don't want to tell more on that. But anyway, Robert Downey, his character, Nathan, goes out and just gets, just very agitated, confrontational about it. because he sees that bag and he explodes, right? Because this is the pinnacle of him, the realization of he's lost everything. In his mind, he's lost his daughter, he's lost his job, his school, he's lost everything. And they get into it, and Charlie decks him, right? Just knocks the
It's a
shit
very
out of him.
quick moment though. Like
Yes.
the way that it happens is like,
Yeah.
because Charlie's standing back, and if you look at like
Yeah.
the character's face, he's like, I'm not going to get in the middle of this. This is a man and his daughter.
Yep.
Like you can see it, but it's when Robert Downey Jr. goes to grab Susan's arm, and he's drunk and he's threatening at this time. He's telling her to get her ass back in the house.
He's being belligerent. Yep.
And he grabs her arm. Now what, like it wasn't, obviously I don't think he was going to harm his daughter, but in Charlie's mind, the protective instinct snaps, and he says, don't touch her. And he says, oh shit, I'm so sorry, immediately after. Like he realizes, I've just crossed a line here. I've been trying to keep out of this. And then, which implies to me that like, that's like not the first time that he's had to do that in his life a little bit. But anyway.
Yes, 100%. And here's the thing about it, right? Is she throws the bag at her father, and they get in the vehicle and they leave. And I'm on a little bit of a teaser here. When he tears the bag open and he sees what it is, what was actually in this bag that Charlie had brought his daughter, I think he's come to the realization, one, he did not know this about his daughter, right? And number two is like, this guy really does care about my daughter, because he's willing, he was trying to get her to stop doing something. And this was a way to do that, to help her, to stop doing this destructive habit that she had. And that's when he starts, basically, I think as a father, he starts saying, one, I don't even know my own daughter. And two, he starts questioning all of his judgments, all of his he starts questioning everything, right? All of his judgment call, everything. Because I think because after that, that's when he really starts spiraling. And that's when Charlie he comes back to the house, and he finds him in the state in the utter state of despair that he's in. Like we talked about, he had the gun, and he was intoxicated, and and all that ensues in there in that scene. And then they have their they have the big explosive moment that occurs there, and then afterwards they're having their moment, and that's when, as a father, he's come to the realization, okay, this guy is not what I thought he was.
Yeah.
And his perception, he was judging by the cover of the book, and that was what was actually inside the book on this deal. And
I don't see, but like that's what I mean by like, this movie isn't just cookie cutter to me, especially when you have someone like Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
When you have someone like Robert Downey Jr. playing the role, I think all of these people were perfectly cast. And I think it's deeper than that. I think along the line it was like an active choice he was making to see Charlie in this way, because there's a moment, right, where he says to Charlie, I was looking through all of this stuff trying to find something on you, and then I came across you, Dad.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I think he had to have done that early on, and the way the movie plays out says to me, especially where there's all these moments where he gives him a break, where he knows that, but everything else going on in his life, which again you can break down to just typical shit, right? Oh, it's a guy who's not happy with his job, it's a guy who got cheated on by his wife, it's a guy who whatever, but these are things that drive people every day to do shit like he did. Right? And yes, just because we see them played out in movies a lot doesn't make that any different. So it is going to hit for people, even though it is a cookie cutter issue that's not this deeply complex plot. That is going to push someone to be where he's at. And casting Robert Downey Jr. is perfect to me just because of his eyes, dude. His eyes, when he looks like a man just in his eyes, who has lost it. And that's probably what pulls me in a little more. But I want to talk about one more scene, just to like, because I don't know, this scene was so funny to me, dude. When the day after he gets off of the Charlie, he takes Ritalin, and he just fucking goes nuts. I don't know what type of Ritalin he was prescribed, but he loses it. It said 10 milligrams on the side. 10 milligrams of any amphetamine is not a lot. You need to get up to like 30 and 40 to be going nuts the way he did. And he took two one time. Two.
Well, yeah, but but we don't know how often he was taking them.
It showed him taking them.
Yeah, I know, but how the time span between each time he took it, was it a day? Was it just a few minutes?
Okay.
Was it, you know what I'm saying? I don't know about that, but yes.
Either way, okay. He's taking Ritalin. He's taking Ritalin. So he goes nuts. And it's implied that however much he takes, to me, he should have been taking a lot, and he could have been. He could have been taking a lot of Ritalin. He could have been popping those like candy. He goes nuts. The day after, he kind of looks at, or whatever, he looks at his meds and he gets an idea. And he goes to the school bully guy, Murph. And the morning he decides to do it, he's looking in the mirror and he's going over his speech. And he's like, maybe your pops. And he's planning like what he's going to say to him. And then the scene it happens. And that scene is so good to me. The little speech he gives him, little deal they cut, the fact that he's got, like you said, the gentle giant character with some cognitive delays, the fact that he has him being his muscle to like pull in like the school bully into the car to cut him this deal with selling the Ritalin, even the school dance scene that happens. You didn't find any of that funny?
Yes. Okay. Okay, so yes, there was definitely some funny moments in this movie, but
the plow roads with a sense of humor.
Well, okay, it wasn't like Tropic Thunder.
Okay, people, I'm sorry. Funny. Yeah, like sorry that like you need to have the most obvious humor to make you laugh, and you can't have a little subtle.
Okay,
you need to have Jack Black running around in his underwear, bombs blowing up.
Hang on. Look.
Go watch the Minecraft movie, people.
No, I don't think so. I think this is one of those deals where because of this is a generational thing, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but me watching this movie, and I'm, in my middle 50s, if I had watched this back, in my 20s or late teens, because when did this movie come out?
2008.
2008. Okay. So I would have been, in my 30s then? Possibly. I don't,
all right. It's fine, people. You didn't like it. It's okay.
No, listen, I liked the movie.
It's cookie cutter. It's cookie cutter. It is cookie for you.
To me, it is a cookie cutter movie. There are a few refreshing.
Robert Downey Jr.'s cookie cutter to you. It's all right.
No, Robert Downey Jr. I want to talk. When we get through this, I actually want to talk exclusively about Robert Downey Jr. outside of Tropic Thunder and outside of Charlie Bartlett. Okay, I want to talk about him as an actor outside of that here at the end. But
you're just gonna tell me better movies that he's been in. I'm aware.
Nope, not at all. This is a movie I would recommend that you watch. I think that this movie shows and is reintroduced this movie as well as some of the others that Robert Downey Jr. did in the early 2000s, right? This here give us, I guess we'll just get into it now. So there was a period of time that I'm sure Robert Downey Jr. Fell off, right? He had severe drug and addiction issues. His career was washed out as far as Hollywood was concerned, right? This started in the 80s all the way up through the early 2000s, and he battled addictions, and so he just wasn't he just was not doing very good stuff. And this movie, along with some other ones like Iron Man, which came out in 2008, which was a year after Charlie Bartlett, this was like part of his rebuilding of his career. And I for one am very glad that he got his life turned around, because I think Robert Downey Jr. is such a versatile actor, and and it doesn't matter what type of character he's playing, what role that he's playing, be it a person playing another person, playing yet a third person, like in Tropic Thunder, right? Or playing a man who is struggling with addictions and the loss of a loved one, and trying to raise a teenage daughter, and be responsible for all these kids, because he's a high school principal. He rises to, because he's just an excellent actor, and I'm glad that he was able to get those things under control in his life, right? If you go back and you look at his early movies, right, going back into the 80s, which is where I was first introduced to Robert Downey Jr. One in particular, which I think was such a foreshadowing or whatever. There was a movie called Less Than Zero. Came out in 1987, and it starred Andrew McCarthy, Jamie Gertz, Robert Downey Jr., James Spader was in it, just to name a few actors. And he plays a dude that is lost, and he is a drug addict, and he winds up selling himself, prostituting himself to pay off his drug dealer that he's in debt to, and he winds up actually ODing and dying in the movie. And then he really started having all these problems with, like I said, it was such a foreshadowing of this man's life. And I'm glad that didn't ultimately happen to him, that he was able to bring all that and get all that. And he, in a speech that he did, it was one of those Hollywood award shows, I don't know which one it was, he credits actually Mel Gibson in helping him get sober.
That's wild.
Actually, I asked Mel to present this award to me for a reason, because when I couldn't get sober, he told me not to give up hope, and he urged me to find my faith. Didn't have to be his or anyone else's, as long as it was rooted in forgiveness. And I couldn't get hired, so he cast me in the lead of a movie that was actually developed for him, and he kept a roof over my head, and he kept food on the table. And most importantly, he said that if I accepted responsibility for my wrongdoings, and if I embraced that part of my soul that was ugly, hugging the cactus, he calls it, he said that if I hugged the cactus long enough, I'd become a man of some humility, and that my life would take on a new meaning. And I did, and it worked. All he asked in return was that someday I help the next guy in some small way. It's reasonable to assume that at the time he didn't imagine the next guy would be him. Or that someday was tonight. So anyway, on this special occasion, and in light of the recent holidays, including Columbus Day, I humbly ask that you join me, unless you are completely without sin, in which case you picked the wrong industry, in forgiving my friend his trespasses, offering him the same clean slate you have me, and allowing him to continue his great and ongoing contribution to our collective art without shame. He's hugged the cactus long enough.
And which Mel Gibson himself has battled those demons and continues to battle them. So, I'll just say this: any movie, me personally, any movie that Robert Downey Jr. is in, 100% I will watch. Period. I think he's that good of an actor. He's a great actor. I think he's probably an actor of caliber for our times. But the movie Charlie Bartlett is a very good movie. It was one of those movies that tend to aggravate me because it was and here's why, and it's not just this movie. I want to be clear on this, but a lot of times if a movie is so easy to tell where it's going and what's going to happen, that to me is frustrating, right? I like to go to a movie that's going to challenge me a little bit, and this one just didn't have that.
Right.
And but that doesn't mean it's not
Peepaw needs to be challenged, guys. Send us movie recommendations that are gonna challenge Peepaw.
Well, those are okay. They exist, but but no, I would still recommend that people go watch this movie. It is an enjoyable movie. I'm not.
On a final note with this movie, I just found out this information just doing a little Wikipedia search on like the movie and the cast. I was not aware that Charlie Bartlett, the actor who played him, Anton Yelkin, passed away. And I just feel it necessary to like mention that apparently he did pass away in 2016. It was an accidental death. I guess his car trapped him in between that and a brick pillar gate. He was pinned between his Jeep and a brick pillar gate, and it was recalled as a result, those cars.
Did you know that
his condolences to his family. So sorry to hear that.
He played Scotty in the relaunch of Star Trek series.
He did.
Yeah. Great actor. He was a great little actor. I really enjoyed him. Yeah.
Well, I feel bad. I didn't know that he passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you didn't. I would have said something. Yeah.
Well, you did great in this movie. I'm sorry to hear he passed away.
I think
Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor. That's all there is to say.
I think he did a lot of the movies that he was in. I thoroughly enjoyed. So,
do we want to? Do you have any final notes on the movie before we outro?
Yes.
Okay.
Go watch both of these movies. That's my encouragement to everybody. Go watch both these movies.
Okay, I'm being cued to say we have to announce the next movies, but we were going to do that.
Yes.
Producers in the shadows. We were going to do that. We didn't need your little message.
Yeah. So next episode, we normally, if you guys see, Nietzsche picks a movie, I pick a movie. We usually try to get it within the same genre, if you will. This one both were comedies. But this one what's that word before? They both starred, they both had Robert Downey Jr. playing in them, but for the next episode, we decided to focus on just one. And the reason being is because this movie that we're going to be going over and discussing is, based off of a 1967 book written by S.E. Hinton. The book was very impactful to me in my childhood. It was required reading when I was in high school. We had to read the book. We watched the movie that was, and this was back in the olden days. This was back before VHS or beta. It was on like a big reel, like in the theaters, the big film reels. and we watched it, and that was God, my mind went blank. Oh my gosh. Oh geez. The Outsiders. And we're going. Thanks for the save there, Nietzsche. Just leave me dangling in the wind. I know you're still getting me because I didn't like Charlie Bartlett.
Okay, it's not because you. It's because you say it wasn't challenging enough. And meanwhile, one of your favorite movies is The Breakfast Club, which is the most predictable movie in the world.
Yes, that's right. It is, but that's one of those ones that's very sentimental to me because, again, of my youth and seeing that movie when I was a teenager, and I was so related to that whole thing. But anyway,
The Outsiders. We're gonna watch The Outsiders.
We're gonna watch, of course, and if I can dig out the book, I may actually read the book between now and then.
What's also important to mention is we're not only going to be talking about the Outsiders classic cut. I'm gonna have Peepaw watch a cut of the movie that I've seen that I hate, and it's called The Outsiders: The Complete Novel, which for me just. The editing in it just ruins a lot of the best scenes in the movie. So we're going to be comparing those. And then also, Peepaw, you wanted to talk about some of the books, right? That were also turned into movies.
Correct.
Are we reviewing those movies as well, or just a discussion of the books?
Okay, we're just going to discuss. We'll introduce. Because there may be some people out there that listen to this that are not familiar with S.E. Hinton and her works. So we're going to introduce them to her first book, which was The Outsiders, that was made into a movie and was directed by, was Francis Ford Coppola, I think was, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she went on to write several other books that were again dealt with teens, and we're going to talk about them and discuss them. Those books was also made into movies. I don't know necessarily if you could find them on a streaming format. So it may be one of those deals where, if you do, you probably wind up having to buy them from Amazon Prime or something. But anyway, it's. But I want to we'll introduce that to the audience, and I believe we're planning on even having a third guest host for this one.
Yes.
So, because this other person has also read. The books.
Weird that they can read. I didn't know they could read until we talked about this.
Yeah. And, but anyway, we're going to discuss the books. And if I have time, I'm going to see if I can dig out all my S.E. Hinton books. Cause I think I have most, if not all of them. I'm going to try to reread them. And, they're not like a hard read. These are what I guess nowadays we call young adult. So they're not like real thick. You probably could read through them in a couple of days, and so I'm going to try to do that because I have not probably read these books since my late teens, early 20s. So it's probably been at least 30 years since I've read the books. And the thing of it is, with, or at least it's been my experience, that whenever they take a book and they make it into a movie, they don't always adapt it directly. So while the adaptations can be good and they can be good movies and enjoyable to watch, there's a lot of nuances and things that are sometimes, because they just don't have the time to get into it in the movies, that is very beneficial from reading the books. So if you have never read any of the S.E. Hinton books, young adult books, I would encourage you to go find them. I'm pretty sure you can get them probably as like a box set off of Amazon.
We'll have an Amazon link in the description.
Yeah, if I can find, I'll get the links to all this stuff, and maybe check these books out, buy them, read
Go
them.
to your local library.
Go to your local library, 100%, and check and read these books. These are, I know, even if you're in your 30s, I think even though these were set in the books and age and stuff were like set in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. I think the takeaways from these books, the lessons, if you will, are still poignant today, or at least they are for me, I think. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Any other closing thoughts before we get out of here, Nietzsche?
No.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you for joining us in the balcony. We look forward to seeing you and then on the next episode. Thank you. Remember to do those YouTubey things. Hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and tell all your friends about us.